Welcome back. Our next guest has been writing about the science of eating for most of his life. And while conversations around food are often riddled with shame and guilt, he offers just the opposite.
He's here to chat about his new book, The End of Craving, Recovering the Lost Wisdom of Eating Well. We're happy to be joined by author and journalist Mark Schatzker. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
Now, when it comes to nutrition, weight gain, and food cravings, we love having something to blame. We've blamed sugar, we've blamed calories and fats. So let's start by setting this straight. What is actually to blame for our cravings?
So I would say let's not use the word blame. Let's turn to cause. And at this point, I think the science is quite conclusive. We've been trying to blame things like fat and carbohydrates. We've been looking, you might say, for the wrong fuel. That's wrong. If we want to look at the cause of what's making us eat so much, it's literally right between our ears. It is our brains.
I mean, I think this is going to be a radical idea for lots of people, but let's take a little peek inside of our brains for a minute. You say we're being tricked often by taste, and this is causing us inadvertently to often eat more. Break this down. What exactly do you mean by that?
So our collective rise in weight, this collective weight gain that's been going on is only a few decades old. So what we need to find is the change. What is it about food that has changed? And what has changed is the way food tastes, what scientists call the sensory properties. Our food system is replete with all sorts of additives, synthetic flavors, fat replacers, artificial sweeteners, modified starches. These change the way food tastes. And what this does is the fundamental thing we've been getting wrong is that our brain is much smarter about eating than we think it is. And when our brain doesn't get what it thought it was going to get, it responds by wanting to eat more.
So walk us through an example of this food uncertainty that you're describing in action.
Okay, so let's take something like a fat replacer. This is an additive that makes food taste rich and creamy like it has fat, but far fewer calories. So as we eat that, the brain registers that fat is coming in. And over the lifetime of eating, the brain knows when I have this rich experience in the mouth, that equals calories. The brain does this, then does this kind of after meal analysis and says, hey, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. And the question we have to ask is, how does the brain respond when that happens? And it responds with increased motivation, what we experience as craving. Now, that might sound bizarre. You think, why would the brain respond that way? I'll give you an example. If I told you the fuel gauge in your car didn't work, it might say full, it might say half full, you don't know what's in there, what would you do?
You'd fill it up. Constantly.
You'd fill it up, exactly. You'd be panicked. You think, I don't want to run out of gas. That would be a disaster. That's how your brain thinks about energy. It doesn't want to get ripped off. So this is something baked in by evolution. When we experience uncertainty, scientists call it reward prediction error, we react with enhanced motivation.
So in our culture, we know a bit about artificial sweeteners, but less is known about fake fats. And you say in your book that when you've contacted leading researchers in the field, they refuse to speak to journalists as a matter of principle. So what is it that they don't want us to know?
So this was really eye-opening to me because this is a huge family of food additives that people are just totally unaware of. They play their cards very differently than artificial sweeteners. So when something has a synthetic sweetener, you'll often see it'll say stevia on it, it'll say NutraSweet. The fat replacer industry has taken a much different approach. There are names, there are industry names for these products. They have bizarre sounding names like Keltrol, Lycodex, Solcafloc, Simpless, but you never see those words in the ingredient panel. They come up with much more innocuous sounding names. So Simpless is technically a microparticulated protein that creates the sensation of fat on the tongue. If you see that in the ingredient panel, it might show up as milk protein, which sounds innocuous. There's a fat replacer designed for muffins called Cream Fiber 7000. On the ingredient panel, you'll see that as citrus fiber, which sounds healthy. I mean, it sounds like it's roughage, it's probably good for you. So as a result, we're really not aware of the degree to which these additives are in so many of the foods that we eat.
And not only that, year by year, these additives taste more and more like the real thing. So what does this mean for us as consumers?
It means that much of the way we're thinking about food it may be backfiring. So a lot of us are concerned with calories. We'll look at the nutritional info panel. We might pick up two products and we'll say, oh, this one only has 250 calories. That one has 350 calories. I'll go with the other. But if it has these additives, sweeteners, flavorings, fat replacers, if those are having this effect in our brain, it's backfiring. We're consuming the very foods we should not be eating. And it's this obsession we have with calories that is causing these food companies to use more and more of these additives to try and bring that calorie count down.
Throughout your book, Mark, you point to Northern Italians as proof that a lot of our ideas about food are wrong, because their diet tends to be heavy in meat, pasta, carbs, and cheese, all the good stuff. Yet on average, they're healthier than we are. So what does this tell us?
This absolutely blew me away. Northern Italy may be the best place in the world in which to eat. Many people consider Bologna kind of the heart of Italian culinary culture. All of Italy is wonderful to eat in. But Bologna is particularly interesting because they actually have their favorite noodle is called the tagliatella. They have one in a chamber of commerce cast in gold. They have a repository of official recipes. This is how you must make this recipe. They have rules in Italy that you must make things like Parmigiano Reggiano or mozzarella di bufala or San Marzano tomatoes. You must make them a certain way in a certain place. If you don't, you can be fined thousands of euros. They absolutely prize the experience of eating. We tend to think that it's this deliciousness that we like eating too much, and this is what's making us fat. Well, if that were true, Northern Italy would be the fattest place in the world. Their rate of obesity is only 8%, whereas south of the border, it's now 42%. So this tells us we're getting something fundamentally wrong about food. But I think it's also very exciting because this also tells us we can eat well and not pay a heavy price.
I love this idea. I'm all about talking about pleasure, and I think that is a piece of this conversation that we have missed out on. And you in the book emphasize the difference between liking food and wanting food. And you say that we should use liking, or the pleasure of food, as more of a tool against craving more food. What do you mean by that?
So if you look at the neuroscience of pleasure, what scientists call hedonics, there's two circuits in the brain. There's the dopamine circuit, which we experience as wanting, as a desire, as motivation. And then there's this other circuit, which is called liking. It's triggered by neurotransmitters that trigger the opioid receptors. Not all animals have this, humans do. And I underwent a really interesting therapy at a German eating disorder clinic where I just profoundly came to know these two experiences. I was given potato chips. I wasn't allowed to eat them, but I could sniff them and rub them together, and this wave of craving washed over me. But I realized that potato chips never really taste all that good. We never talk about a great bag of potato chips I once had. Then I had a small square of exquisite dark chocolate covering this little biscuit center, and it melted in my mouth, and I went on this kind of immersive journey. And this tiny piece of chocolate gave me such incredible pleasure. And the scientist has even found that she can use really high-quality chocolate with binge eaters to actually extinguish their food cravings.
So I love this conversation about pleasure and food. And I'm wondering, from that viewpoint, Mark, for us, when we go into the grocery stores this weekend and we're bringing home our haul, what kind of advice do you have for us when we are doing our grocery shopping?
Remember that your brain is a lot smarter than you think. Don't try and fool it. I would say stay away from artificial sweeteners, especially when they're combined with sugar. A lot of the research shows that is actually a very bad combination. Stay away from the fake fats. When things say light, when they say low fat, this isn't a winning strategy. Eat real food, but not only real food, eat the best food. Italians don't argue about nutrients. They argue about the best recipe. My grandmother's ragu is better than yours. That's how we should approach food. It gives us this rich, pleasurable experience 3 times a day. Let's enjoy it.
Hear, hear. And Mark, it has been such a pleasure talking with you today. Thanks for this.
Thank you so much.
The book is called The End of Craving, and you can find it everywhere now. Go check it out, and we'll be right back.